everyone, and welcome to the Future of Compensation with Radu Leonte. My name is Matt. I am not Radu. I am joined by my distinguished colleague Radu here today from Cognizant Technology Solutions. My name is Matthew Jolliffe. I'm a director with Spalding Ridge in the sales performance management practice, doing incentive compensation and sales planning and various topics in the sales performance management space over the last number of years. Radu, do you want to introduce yourself?
So hi, everyone. First of all, Matt, pleased to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. My name is Radu, and I'm currently the head of sales compensation and performance with Cognizant. In terms of experience, I have started some 15 years ago running commission cycles and getting familiar with that area, and then gradually got exposed to the sales compensation within Oracle itself, and then transitioned into additional companies. I've had the opportunity to run sales comp transformation programs, making schemes more efficient, helping the business consume that data in a more transparent and easy fashion. And similarly to Matt's experience, I've done 2 years of tool implementation as well. I've been
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been part of Cognizant for the last 2 years, and it has been an amazing and exciting experience. Very complex environment with loads of challenges, and that's it about me.
Yeah, and I think we've chatted about this before, but I think sales compensation is one of those things that has that Dunning-Kruger effect, where not knowing a lot about the topic makes you think you understand everything about the topic. And I think instinctually, it's really something that everyone kind of understands at a very basic level. You sell product and you get paid a percentage of how much you sell. So it's something that everybody can understand at a base level. But those of us that spend time in this space and work in these organizations realize there's a lot more to it, is there not?
It's a very interesting way of seeing things. To your point, in the simplest terminology, you sell X and you get Y as a commission in a fairly simplistic transformation. One of the main areas from a pure sales comp perspective, once you get a few years under your belt, is the fact that you quickly understand this is the first area where all the different departments and all their work crystallizes into one single number. So all the systems and all the departments working together to make this happen from a planning perspective, from an organizational perspective, strategic perspective for the company, crystallizes into that one commission number. And this is where typically it's what we called, this is the first place where everything is seen under one banner with a magnifying glass. And the problem is what we build as a company with the different functions. And I mean, all the connected departments working. We are building a system or an ecosystem with multiple areas which have clear rules, logical rules, and everything is built to flow from one system to another. The problem is all of these are pure abstract and mathematical. And the result of sales compensation is pure humane. It's pure emotion. Right. Obviously, when the salesperson is selling a deal in the value of X, they do have an expectation. And this is to your point earlier, it's very easy to understand on the surface, and it is very, very complex once you start delving into it and dealing with all the different scenarios and situations. And that's just the logical aspect. So you can go and tweak the systems, you can go and repair processes, or you can find an exceptional treatment to whatever error. But then the other side, the second side of this, and this is mostly impacting the GSC administration team, the global sales comp administration team. This is mainly dealing with the emotion coming out of it, making sure that your sales team is educated, making sure that they do understand how to interact with the plan, making sure they understand what are their targets, their setup, and what are the rules governing their scheme.
Yeah, I think you have sort of 3 principles or axioms or guidelines for this type of program, right?
Correct. So after a few years running this, and as I mentioned at the beginning, I've run this type of transformation in the past in a couple of different environments and industries. You can resume the entire work stream into 3 pillars. So number 1, get it done right the first time. Number 2, simplicity is strength. And number 3, communication, fairness, transparency. So I'll try and tackle these individually. Get it done right refers to a very, very simple concept, which is very similar in behavior and administration to the entire global sales comp function. Get it done right sounds very, very easy to do, but very, very hard to master. You ultimately want to display the correct number, the correct information, the correct rules for all your associates in one go. You don't want to have to go back and do in-year planning or replans or half-year plans, as they're known in the industry, and then rehashing the entire target. You're basically at that level moving the goalposts in year. You don't want to change the rules of engagement or the rules of your compensation plan in year. This was a thing that used to happen some 7 to 15 years ago. It was normal in an industry to change the plan on the fly. And as you can imagine, it's very hard to communicate this accurately with thousands of employees waiting for this. They're focused on selling, they're focused on going to the market and to the customer. And in the meantime, you're changing the entire rules of engagement. So if we imagine this at its core, you want to launch the plan on the back of the planning cycle in one go with no further changes in year, or as few as possible, obviously. This is easier said than done, as we know.
I was just thinking the same thing. Definitely easier said than done, but definitely something to strive for.
Exactly. So if we're thinking from the top and the purpose of an organization, the purpose of the org itself is to make sure that everyone understands the context of their work and what they do, defining that interaction, and then from there moving on to the shareholder and growth of the company and existence of the very company in the ecosystem, right? So from there, we derive a strategy. That strategy crystallizes into targets by areas, by products. I'm sure we are all vaguely familiar with some of the complexities and where the matrix starts to add a few dimensions and everything else, right? So from that from that moment alone, the whole purpose is to make sure we crystallize during that planning cycle everything into one view, and that view is accepted by everyone from the business, from a stakeholder management perspective, and then it's also distributed further down the line from an adoption and acceptance perspective. When all of these elements are said and done, you are ready to go to the market. And at this moment, you should have a very, very good plan with respect to communication, adoption, explanation. Obviously, the one of the core elements that can help you with this is a very robust technology solution. So having a technology solution that allows you to look into detail and at the highest level with a click of a button, being able to sync thousands, millions of data points into one view, that will definitely help. And that's part of the preparation of that going into the market.
Yeah, as you think about like an organization, they obviously have many different objectives, strategies, different levers to pull, for a large organization like Cognizant, there's lots of different priorities and lots of different stakeholders. So as you can imagine, like the getting it right the first time is there's a lot going on there. So I think that kind of feeds into your second point.
It does. And traditionally for the last 2 years, I think the global sales operations org has been created about 2.5, maybe almost 3 years ago now. So the purpose of the org was to bring all the different elements and complexities under one banner and having a consistent approach and consistent go-to-market from a planning perspective. So linking this back to simplicity is strength. One of the core philosophies that we had was we want to bring the comp plan in front of the commercial associate, in front of the seller, in a very, very simplistic way, in a very easy to understand way, and also in a way that it supports our ambition as a corporation, because we want to go back to double-digit growth. We want to stay there, and we want to encourage that through the plan, which is basically the main purpose of existence for the plan. Like ultimately, it's not only about producing that reward for the commercial associate, but translating what's the company's ambition into an actual measurable objective and going to market with that objective. Where simplicity's strength comes into play here is you basically have an unlimited amount of creativity on how you create a plan. from the basic design of a plan metric and integrating that into your company's ecosystem, right? Is it what type of objective are you talking about? Is it a measured objective? Is it a measurable objective even, right? So you have hard objectives, you have soft objectives. Generally, for the purpose of the sales compensation plan, you want to stay with pure sales metrics, like booking value, either on an annual or multi-annual outlook. You want to stay completely measurable and auditable from the perspective of the fairness of the plan. So this will start to feed into the third point a little bit. But ultimately, you want to have a scheme which is very easy to understand and which produces very simplistic results and upfront results for the commercial associate. Yeah. This creates another element which feeds into the third point, which is the transparency element. The easier it is for us as a business to articulate the scheme, the easier it is to understand from a seller's perspective, and they will not spend the time to try to understand a plan with 6 or 7 metrics, with interlaced actuals, with interchanging rates, depending on the results on 2 or 3 other metrics. So the simpler you stay, the easier it is for your entire sales team to understand, hey, the company strategy is to go to double-digit growth. The easiest way to get there is for us to get more TCV, more valuable TCV for the company. When we're thinking about the IT services ecosystem, we need to take into consideration the effectiveness of the revenue that we're getting and how that revenue is being taken. And obviously, you need to start thinking about also the ability to deliver and some other key aspects that go into that measurement. So you need to start thinking about the plan. Hey, how do I assign the metric weight? How do I make this into not only an easy to understand plan, but a plan that translates into that ambition from the seller to go and sell more and to go and bring the valuable deals in.
Right. Because, yeah, I think virtually any salesperson at the beginning of the year, when they receive their target letter and the details of their compensation plan, they should be spending time at the beginning of the year going through that plan, understanding how to achieve that plan and how best to frankly earn money for themselves that plan. And when that plan is well constructed and the goals of both align together, then obviously both people's goals are aligned. And to your point about transparency, the longer they spend looking over that plan and trying to understand that plan, the less time they're spending selling. So I definitely agree that transparency is a very important part here.
Exactly. I really love the way you highlighted this point. So let's feed everything that we have been discussing into the third pillar, which is transparency, fairness, and communication. It is, in my opinion, it is extremely important when we're taking the plan to the seller. When we do that go-to-market and the planning cycle has ended, it's extremely important to not only collaborate with the stakeholders and the sales leaders to explain to them, hey, guys, this is the plan. These are the metrics, these are the rates, and so on and so forth. If we remember briefly what I mentioned, that is the mathematical abstract part of the plan. The emotional aspect is more important, at least in my experience, with respect to taking the plan to the business. Because it is at this moment when you start explaining to your sellers, hey, this is how you make money with the plan. This is the easiest way for you to make money with the plan. And quite honestly, we all want you guys to be successful. If you're successful, the company is successful, the shareholder is successful, the customer is successful, everyone is happy. So that's the easiest way to achieve both your personal objectives, financial objectives, and so on, and also make sure we're doing all the right things for the company that we work for and for our customers ultimately, right? With respect to the fairness aspect, it's very important to be able to explain the plan to all the different areas in a very open forum. There must be no hidden agendas. There must be no hidden elements. The plan has to be completely upfront, so every sales leader understands what every function reporting into them is supposed to achieve. If you're thinking about hunters, you will have typically a plan designed for hunters. If you're thinking about your pre-sales team, they'll have a slightly differently tweaked plan as your enterprise team or as your strategic team, right? Because they're focused on different business elements. The strategic team is focused on retention and development. As an example, your hunting team is focused on penetration of new accounts, bringing new fresh blood into the company's ecosystem of customers. So this is where combining the communication and the transparency together is a key element, because this is where you're moving from the concept of mathematical, logical build-up into an emotional result. And the associates, the sellers, will ultimately understand and be able to relate to what the plan is doing for them and what they can do to get the proper results through the plan. The last word in this pillar is fairness. Fairness is a controversial, I think, term, because fairness can be interpreted in a multitude of ways by different people in different contexts. But fairness is simply about building a context in which all sellers are treated the exact same way in the same set of conditions. This is where we're going a little bit deeper into the concept of designing terms and conditions, which are clearly understood. They are validated with local councils, local law councils, local HR policies, and the integration of that document is very, very important, because it has to be easy to read, easy to consume, and it has to contain the rules. I think we're all familiar with signing a basic contract from a mobile provider. You will receive 7 pages written in font 6, and it's very hard to consume, and you almost feel like everything is caveats, right? Unfortunately, there's not really an easy way around this. So the terms and conditions will live in that area. And the important part there is to have a global sales comm team and a global sales operations team constantly collaborating with the sales leadership, constantly collaborating and engaged with the sales finance to be able to produce fair results. Unfortunately, as I said, this is a pure emotional topic. So as you can imagine, treating people in an unfair way results not only in the potential ethic or HR or legal implication and conversation. The most damaging aspect of this fact is that the seller will lose their trust in you as a company, in you as a fair administrator, and then obviously they're disgruntled. They will have the water tower conversations we're all familiar with, and obviously this sort of messaging spreads like wildfire. So it is extremely important we stay in a fair context for everyone, and we keep everyone whole from that perspective. There is no preferential treatment. There is no special treatment. Obviously, there will be exceptions, but the exceptions are meant to treat fringe cases and fringe scenarios for which the math simply doesn't tie up. But the fairness of that treatment has to be integrated in the context of the company. You need the associate to agree and understand with this. There are very powerful jurisdictions in Europe, for example, that will be heavily opposing to this. But staying in front of the problem and having a conversation before it becomes a problem is a key aspect there. And I've been blessed in Cognizant in a way, because Cognizant has been growing like the last 27 years at an insane rate. And then the company grew up to be very, very diverse with multiple elements moving at the same time. But for the last 2 years, in my experience, what I've learned is the sellers in Cognizant have their hearts in the right place. And once they understand what we're aiming to do and what we're trying to do, they can basically rally to the cause. And it's one thing from, if we think about it, right? It's one thing from your global sales compensation leader to say to you, hey guys, we want to do the plan, we want to execute the plan in a fair way. We want everyone to be a winner, and provided they're doing the right things, right? It's completely different when a seller goes to his team and says that. It's a completely different message, and it spreads again like wildfire. So this is where the community of sellers starts to trust what the company is doing, and it creates that it moves that bond from this group of people is trying to administer my bonus or do what they need to do, and they are just another corporate function. It moves to this group of people wants to partner with us. They want us to be successful. We want to make them successful and the corporate successful. That's what
it transitions from gatekeepers to partnership and support, rather.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
And I think I think you touched on this a little bit, but I think the other place like the transparency and fairness comes in is not just in the plan setup, but in the like the administration and the ongoing administration of the plan throughout the year, because there's constant changes. Like as much as you get it right the first time, there are unique situations and scenarios where throughout the year you need to address them, right?
Absolutely correct. One aspect that can be fed into this piece, so ignoring the amount of change with which we will have to deal on a yearly basis, is fed by the second pillar that I mentioned. Having a simple plan and designed specifically for the task will give the plan some robustness with respect to how it will react to massive amounts of change. And then with respect to simply the administration of the said changes, again, you need to stay in a very fair position to treat everyone in the same way and make sure you do the rounds as an administrator. You need to bring to the communication table all the different stakeholders, again, finance, sales, operations, bring in a forum with complete transparency. We want to transition from scenario A to scenario B. What are the implications? What does this mean for the associate? We need to think about the associate first because their lives are impacted by this. So us as a business, we have a responsibility to think about the associate first and what is fair for the associate, and then you can start thinking about, hey, how are we actually going to achieve this? Is this too complex? Do we need another technology solution? Do we need development? Do we need to avoid complexity and so on and so forth? So you're absolutely right that in-year administration is never going to go away. I think if that would go away, the machines would rule the world anyway at that stage. So I think the majority of us operate anywhere in the 80-20 or 90-10 kind of rule, where you're hoping to have your automation and technology solutions to deal with the majority of the cases, but then you will always have the fringe cases where you need to take a deep dive and you need to take all your stakeholders on the same trip with you so that they do understand what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and what is the purpose of that change.
Yeah, you kind of have to find that balance between these are rules for the system, we cannot do things differently, and being willing to adapt and change, because technology is great and technology enables many things, but a technology won't fix a broken process. If there's 800 salespeople with 800 different compensation plans, like the technology solution isn't going to simplify things unless the organization works to. You have some experience in this area, right?
Yeah, I can share this. I'm not going to share the names of the companies, though. I can share two experiences from this perspective. And by the way, Matt, you're absolutely spot on. A technology will help you better manage, more transparently manage, and take your plan to the sellers. But the pre-work required to get there feeds back into the get it right the first time. I am aware of organizations with 300 plans for 500 sellers. You cannot have this level of specificity and still call it a sales compensation plan. At that stage is an individually designed scheme. Each and every person, on average, has their own plan. So at that stage, without taking the time as a business to understand what is your go-to-market strategy, what are the sales roles that you want to take to the market next year, what is their purpose, their definition, and how are they going to engage from a coverage perspective, and coverage can be both vertical and horizontal, right? We can think about industry and lists of accounts, and then we can think about a horizontal spectrum with respect to either product addressability or some other combination of metrics that create that horizontal line. So all of this is to be crystallized, and all of this is to be like derived before you even start thinking about how do we derive target, how do we implement that target and get it approved through the proper channels and whatnot. So removing that complexity, I would say, is a prerequisite of the planning cycle. And to your point, there's no amount of technology that will remove that complexity. When we live in that mind space where we're saying, hey, my requirements are fully special, I don't want to hear anything else, this is what needs to happen for me to be successful. This is simply saying I am afraid of change. I think there's a lot of that, and rightfully so. I think the human nature is to be a little bit apprehensive with respect to change. But I noticed that the better you as a business, you articulate these things, and the better you communicate, and not only with the exco level, but also with the sales leadership levels and with the owners of sales finance and sales ops, the easier it is for them to demystify that change. So you shift people from thinking, oh my God, something is changing, what does this mean for me, into a list of actions with a list of results. Hey, I'm doing the change, then I have to change A, B, C, and I'll get the results E, F, G. So it's much easier to rally to the cause again, and obviously support the idea of refining the plan, refining the go-to-market, and keeping everything as simple as possible. The more complex you stay, the harder it is for you to go to market.
And the harder it is for you to change. But the complex, yeah, it's you have to start somewhere. And and I understand the fear of change when you're in a situation like that, because it is the emotional impact of people's lives being changed. So the focus on getting it right, back to your first point, getting it right the first time really comes in again. I think we're coming up on time. So 2 more questions. First of all, could you just one more time reiterate the 3 pillars for everybody, just to remind everybody?
Okay, happy to do so. Again, let's start thinking about the philosophy of sales comp. You have a collection of mathematical and logical buildings to help support you through this process, but the end result is emotional. So then we need to make sure that we can relate back to our sellers. So then our 3 pillars have to be: get it right the first time, minimal disruption, maximum use of time. And to your point earlier, Matt, if I'm getting this right the first time, I go to market as a support function. I go to my sellers once at the beginning of the year. They understand and address their questions and concerns there. And then for the rest of the year, they can focus on the selling activity. Simplicity is strength. This feeds from pillar number 1, because it means we have a robust scheme. We have a fit for purpose scheme, and it's aligned to the strategy. Everyone can rally to the same cause, which is built for the entire corporation. And then transparency, communication, and fairness. This is about how we are enabling all the different functions to understand, this is what we do, this is what we want to achieve, this is your path to earning through the plan, and we're going to make this a fair administration of the plan. You don't need to worry about fringe cases, about preferential treatment. Everyone is treated by the same set of rules applicable to all of us.
Awesome, thank you. And final question, what book are you currently reading?
So I can answer this in 2 ways. At the moment, I'm rereading a book. So there is this book called The Book of 5 Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. This is a book that I've made the habit of reading at least once every year. It's a reminder for all the 3 pillars for me. It's a very interesting philosophy book, which depicts the fact that if you want to do something and you do this at the best of your abilities, you're always going to end up in a position where you can evolve and learn more, or you are in a position where you can impart some of that knowledge with other people.
All right, awesome. And then actually, I do have one sort of follow-up question from our team. Have you, going through this journey, have you noticed any sort of increase in the motivation of salespeople, and have you seen firsthand sort of the implementation of a technology solution changing the salesperson's behavior or motivation?
So this is a very interesting question, and the short answer for this one is yes. We have moved in Cognizant. We have moved from an area where, as I said, everything was living in shards. We have moved to a place where everything is living in a central system. There is a reduced amount of queries, at least from a pure business perspective and articulation perspective, with respect to what's what in the plan. Where are my targets? Where are my allocations? How is my coverage defined? And so on and so forth. And what we are noticing is that there is an increased interest from the sales team to understand all these key aspects earlier in the year, and they can rally with them. We went to market earlier this year with a brand new hunter plan designed specifically for our hunting team. And it was very, very interesting to observe the entire ecosystem rallying to the idea, being excited about the new compensation plan and the solution to implement it and take that to the business. So there is the excitement of having a new technology, that there's always the excitement. I can see everything in one go. I think we're all living in an age where we want to have an app on our phone and just click a button and get everything at a glance. And this is the beauty of technology. If we come together with all the different requirements for that technology before it goes live, this is the exact effect that you get. You will get an emotional response from people saying to you, hey, this is really amazing. I can see everything. I have peace of mind. I know that everything is at a touch of a button. It's basically like checking your own bank account. It's exciting and it's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Radu. And thank you everyone for joining. I think this is the end of our time. Hope everyone learned something today and had a good time listening to the future of compensation with Radu from Cognizant.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you everyone for listening. It's a pleasure.